Greetings, fellow beings.
It probably comes as no surprise that when it comes to the sightings of unknown creatures, that many of them have a somewhat human shape to them. Reptilians, aliens, cryptids, and many other humanoids which remain a mystery to our understanding. We don't know what worlds they may come from, but they seem to show up in many different forms.
Number 6.
This happened in late June. I was in bed but not getting any rest. I was tossing and turning and basically I couldn't fall asleep. When I do sleep, I sleep like a rock. But when I don't, I am very restless. Anyways, I had this odd feeling that night and kept hearing bizarre noises in my house. So I was pretty much just laying in bed trying to fall asleep without much luck. I finally closed my eyes and probably slept for about 5 minutes. It was about 3 a.m. And within that time, I had the gut feeling that someone was watching me sleep. I don't know why this feeling popped into my head, but it did. I sprung up fast as I could, and it almost seemed like I jolted out of bed to an upright position and saw something, just as I suspected, watching me sleep. This completely blew my mind as I had never seen anything like this before, and I can barely describe it, but I'm going to give it a shot. It was about 7 to 8 feet tall and was a human-looking figure but taller and wider, made completely out of a bluish-white light. It almost looked like it was made out of flames or something of the like of gas or particles. It had no distinct facial features at all. It was just a figure made out of this light, almost illuminated from within but didn't create light surrounding it. It was very bizarre. As I jumped up in my bed, I got to get a good look at it for about 2 to 3 seconds before it jolted out of my bedroom. Also, when I jumped out of bed, my boyfriend was sleeping next to me and yelled, "He's watching us sleep!" He didn't immediately wake up, and of course the figure was out of the room when he did. I was very alarmed after that, but at the same time I had this feeling that it was okay. I consider myself a very logical and practical person and cannot figure out what this being was or why it was watching me sleep. I have never had sleep paralysis or anything before, so please do not tell me it was that, as I was instantly wide awake at the time of seeing this. This is where things get a little more interesting. I know this will seem far-fetched, but I am telling the truth in hopes someone may be able to help. After seeing this being, I have been able to predict things in my immediate future with 100% accuracy. For example, I was at my mother's house for the 4th of July, and we were getting ready to leave her house and go home for the evening. As we were saying our goodbyes, myself, my boyfriend, and our 2-year-old daughter, a scene of a car crash instantly popped into my head, and I told myself, we will get hit tonight. It came from nowhere, and I brushed it off as myself just being paranoid. As luck would have it, we got hit on the freeway from behind in a rainstorm driving home. We were all okay, but the fact that I predicted this and it actually happened really frightened me. Since then, I have predicted other things that have actually happened, including another car crash where we also got hit from behind. Since the sighting, I have not been able to sleep very sound. I can hear things very clearly now, even the smallest, most faint noises. I really hope to see this thing again, as I am very intrigued by what the hell this was and what the heck happened to me while I was sleeping.
Number 5.
The source is Darkness Radio, August 29th, 2016. Karen in California wrote in to tell of her strange encounter. When I was 6 or 7, I saw something that scared me so badly that to this day, I still sleep with the light on. I shared a room with my 2 sisters in a little house in La Puente, California. In our room, we had sliding closet doors, you know, the ones that come off the tracks every other day. Most of the time, they were not closed all the way. One night, I woke up, and I don't know what time it was, but it must have been late because everyone else was asleep in the house, all in bed, all nestled in for the night. My bed was situated to where it was facing the closet doors. As I glanced over at them, an orange glowing man peeked around the door of the closet and looked right at me. He was smiling. Not a comforting smile either. It seemed more diabolical. His fingers wrapped around the frame of the door first, and then he poked his head out. Now, from what I can remember, he kind of looked like the Joker from the original Batman series, and he glowed from within. I was so scared I couldn't make a sound. In fact, I don't think I even tried. I just turned over and hid my face in the pillow for what seemed like an eternity. When I mustered the courage to look up, I realized it was morning. When I told my parents what had happened, they told me it was just a dream. I know it wasn't a dream. I remember my heart racing and how hard it was to breathe while hiding my face in my pillow. In the same house, I've also witnessed a pair of shoes take a step with no one in them as well. And once I watched my Barbie doll fall over and sit itself back up all by itself.
Number 4.
Last night I saw something come around the corner of my house, and its presence was overwhelming. I went for a walk last night since the weather has been really nice lately. When I got home around 2 a.m., I decided to just sit in my backyard and enjoy the night. I was listening to birds chirping, which I found strange, someone watering their lawn, and just general night sounds. Then I suddenly see in my mind this large tan skin colored creature come around the corner of my house. It's awful looking, huge, thick arms and broad shoulders, a narrow waist and legs shorter than its arms. It's humanoid-like, only walking on all fours as if it couldn't stand upright. The middle of its back was the tallest point, not the shoulders. It had these very strange claws that were protected by placing weight on the knuckles instead of the claw tips. I'm not really sure about the face. All I can remember about it is that the head was smaller than you would expect, and that the mouth was pretty grotesque. The lips were stretched over the teeth, and it didn't look like there was a jaw. This lasted for a total of about 5 seconds. Then I snapped back to me sitting in my chair. I took a moment after seeing that and wondered why I thought that. Then I realized how scary it looked, and then I noticed it was entirely silent out. I couldn't even hear my tinnitus. At the same time, I noticed the silence, this suffocating presence of dread hit me. I was instantly terrified. I then heard things being knocked over and movement coming towards me from that direction. I silently made my way to the door and let myself in. By the time I was entering my house, I felt like I definitely wasn't alone, but the feeling didn't follow me inside. I don't really know anything about skinwalkers, but after it happened, that idea kept nudging me. I've been thinking about it and have a few ideas as to what happened. Either it was coming my way and I somehow sensed it and saw it beforehand. Its presence was powerful enough to have people pick up on it before it's near them. Or it was actually where I saw it, but I was physically unable to see it. Somehow I briefly caught a glimpse of it with my mind's eye. Or I had a lapse of sanity.
Number 3.
This is something I've only ever told 1 or 2 close friends. Never told any family members because they would think my younger brain was making things up or confusing one thing for another, etc. But I stumbled upon this subreddit randomly a few days ago and feel like my bizarre little encounter might be of interest to some of you. It's nothing too outstanding, but I've never ever forgotten it, and every time I recall it, I get this funny feeling in my stomach. It's close to fear, but without actually being scared. I don't know, it's hard to explain. Anyway, it was probably 2001 or 2002 around December. I must have been about 8 or 9, and I was skating in my family's carport. Directly next to our carport was a little garden on a slope, and down the slope was a creek that ran all through the neighborhood. Our street was kind of valley-shaped, so the creek was running toward the road and came from a hill sort of behind our house. But the creek itself ran at the back of a whole bunch of people's backyards, and we used to play down there all the time, sometimes trying in vain to catch eels and stuff. Never ever saw anyone else down there. The creek went under our road through stormwater tunnels, my town is full of them, which leads about 500 to 800 meters to the beach. Those tunnels are creepy as fuck. I once went walking through them for about 2 hours and came up in a weird spot only 500 meters or so from my starting point, and I've never seen anyone else go in or out of them. So I'm just skating around trying to pull off tricks and stuff, and I see this family. I think a man, a woman, and a kid, maybe 2 kids, literally walking through the creek, dressed in like casual-ish nuclear family 90s gear. No signs of mud or dirt or water or anything on them. I didn't hear or see them coming through the water, didn't hear people chatting from afar or anything. They were just there. They looked foreign enough already, maybe South American or Asian based on facial structure, but their skin was ghostly gray, almost transparent with like a hint of pale green or yellow. Sort of like how really, really deathly sick people can look sometimes. Also, they had no eyebrows or anything. The man had no facial hair, and the hair on their heads almost looked like wigs. The thing that struck me most was their big eyes. They were like a washed out bluish gray without any pupils. The closest thing I've seen to it are the doppelgangers from Twin Peaks, which is almost a perfect representation of their eyes, although that's just the eyes. They stopped dead in their tracks for about 5 seconds, and the man smiled and waved to me casually. The woman and children didn't really react except for stopping when the man did and looking toward me. The strangest feeling washed over me, almost like I should be scared, but I'm really not. Very confusing and hard to put into words. I know I didn't say anything, I just looked at them, and they were looking back at me too, but didn't say anything, just smiled and waved. They continued through the creek and through the stormwater tunnel as if it were nothing out of the ordinary. The woman and 2 kids never showed any emotion or much other movement other than walking. Put all together, it just really freaked me out. Why in the world would parents take a kid or kids that were younger than me at the time through a creek and then through a huge, scary storm tunnel? It would have actually been heaps faster to take designated paths on land to the beach where the tunnel opened up. Everything just felt really off, and after perusing through this subreddit for a while, it seemed like the most appropriate place to post this. I wasn't exactly abducted by a beam of light or anything like that, but this small encounter really affected me, and I've never forgotten the event or how it made me feel. Sorry if this seems a bit muddled. It's just hard to get it down and accurately describe everything.
Number 2.
I've never told anybody this story before for fear of being disbelieved or ridiculed. But now that I found this subreddit, I figured that I should share it and see what happens. The date was March 6th, 2016, around 6:55 p.m. I had gone to church with my parents. Our church has a service in the evening as well as in the morning on Sunday. Halfway through the service, I started getting a headache and I slipped out to the car. At this point, it was almost completely dark outside, save for a few lights that were on in the parking lot where I was sitting. Now, before I continue, I would like to stress that I was not under the influence of any medication or mind-altering substances at the time, and I am not the kind of person who invents stories just for kicks or to elicit a reaction out of anybody. Neither am I prone to sleep paralysis, which is the context for a lot of sightings. Although there were no witnesses to what happened next, I will say that I am being completely truthful. I had been sitting in the car for about 10 minutes when I saw a tall, thin figure walking slowly across the bottom end of the parking lot. It passed underneath one of the lights, and I caught a glimpse of what it looked like. There were no discernible facial features. Its skin had a pale, whitish hue, which looked almost unhealthy, and it was taller than the average man. I would estimate its height at around 7 feet. Its head was bowed, and it walked in a slow, striding manner. I sensed that it was not human, but strangely, I was not afraid, but rather filled with a sense of deep calm. It moved into the shadows, and I could see that it paused for a few moments before walking towards the fence and then phasing away. At that point, I was overwhelmed with fear, and I spent the next 15 minutes trembling and close to tears until my parents came back. I never told them about what I'd seen because they are very rational and wouldn't have believed me. For the next few months, I couldn't stop thinking about it and wondering what it could have been. There were times when I questioned my sanity and thought that I might have imagined everything until someone I knew described a being that she'd seen in the same parking lot about a year before. She knew nothing about my experience and therefore couldn't have changed any of the details to match up with mine. I was incredibly relieved to hear that somebody else knew of the being, but it was nonetheless disturbing to know that neither of us had any idea of what it could be. Update. I have since spoken to her in depth about it, and according to her, it appeared in the same place and displayed similar behavior. Something that was very different, and which I have never experienced in my sighting, was that there was a disgusting smell that seemed to be coming from the creature. I found this to be extremely disturbing and weird, but it sounds like descriptions that I've heard of gray aliens. I've heard that they have a certain smell to them. I'm now wondering whether it was some kind of alien.
Number 1.
Miami Gardens in Florida, 1972. I was 17. My bedroom was on the second floor. Windows were 12 feet off the ground. I got up to use the bathroom around 2 a.m. Something made me look at my window, and a being was hovering there outside, where no human could have been. It was a silver gray with large black orb eyes. It communicated to me without speaking, and it told me that I should not fear him. I was not afraid. We stared at each other for about 1 to 2 minutes. No other contact was attempted. I felt calm, but sure of what I saw. I left to the restroom, and the entity was gone when I came back. For 43 years, I have never questioned what I saw. I always hoped to see something again, but never have. I felt at peace and understanding, if that even makes any sense. Hey guys, I'd like to thank you once again for listening. You know, there are so many stories out there of people claiming to experience the unexplainable or knowing someone who has. We can only imagine what the true nature of our existence actually amounts to and what it really is. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more upcoming stories. Until next time.
Be aware and keep your eyes open.